Okay, we are talking about, well, this great video here, and it's gonna be amazing topic, guys. So of course, this is by Wolf Lord, and you can check the video down below. I think I left a link, so please go and support him by watching the original video. I, of course, not only going to be reacting to this, but commenting on what he said and actually try to explain some stuff on my own here, which is part of my theory and just what I know so far, what I managed to gather once again based on what I know so far. So let us see the video. I'm gonna stop it in some key points and just, engage the topic directly. So yeah, not a typical reaction. I already did one of Wolf Lord, so you can go and check that out. It was also a very awesome topic here on the channel. So without further ado, guys, we are gonna start. Optic high, Clayton high. Well, yeah, looks like it, but it's not. It's definitely, yeah, it's interesting. Okay, let's see it.
Flawed Row here. Today we are covering one of my absolute favourite topics in the lore, a Primarch interacting with the Emperor.
Yeah,
But
mine
even
too.
better than that, one of the few written very first meetings between father and son. Corvus Corax, Primarch of the Raven Guard, meets the Emperor of Mankind for the very first time. This is going to be a good one.
Oh, yes.
Before we begin, the events we are going to be discussing today are from the Horus Heresy novel Deliverance Lost by Gav Fulp, and it's a really good read. I really do recommend this one, and as always, I really recommend you read the novel for yourself first, as that's the best way to enjoy the lore for yourself.
That should be on my list.
Not only that, but we help to
books
support
that I
Games
have to
Workshop
read.
and the Great Black Library that way too.
Oh
Because
boy.
without them, well, we don't have all this fantastic lore to discuss with each other.
It's not in
I will post a link to the book on the Black Library's website in the description for those that are interested.
Books, but I'm
But
gonna
with that
write it
said,
down.
let's jump straight in. They moved like soldiers, Corvus thought as he watched the ex-prisoners spreading out across the Ferrocrete. A few years ago, they had been gangsters and philosophers, thieves and agitators. Now they were his army, well drilled and highly motivated. He knew much of the credit was his, but in turn he owed a lot to whoever had given him the gifts he possessed. People listened to him without doubt, and he had an innate understanding of fighting. To direct an attack or devise a strategy came as naturally to Corvus's breathing. Some of the men were pointing upwards and shouting. A craft appeared beyond the field barrier. Twin trails of plasma bright against the dark sky as it descended through the barrier high above. Corvus saw that it was shaped like a great mechanical bird of prey, golden in colour, with angled wings that stretched back like those of a diving hawk. It hovered for a moment, and the plasma engines dimmed as the pilot switched to anti-gravitic impellers to land the craft.
Yeah.
Falling slowly, the shuttle came to rest at the centre of the apron,
Just trying to
within
imagine.
the inner circle marked there in the red paint. Corvus looked through the canopy and was surprised to see that the cockpit was empty. He suddenly felt a hint of suspicion at the seemingly unmanned craft. Perhaps it was loaded with explosives, a desperate act of petty revenge from one of the guild masters. Okay, small thing here, but I love the fact that the Emperor isn't just physically piloting the ship. He's just, I'm not going to bother with that. I'm just going to use my psychic power to do that. He hasn't even brought anyone with him. No pilot, no custodes. That shows a great deal of confidence or faith that this meeting, his son for the first time, is going to go well. Ready weapons, Gapian called out. The men raised an assortment of slug throwers, shotguns and las rifles, looted from dead guards and captured weapons lockers. A door opened in the side of the shuttle beneath the right wing, directly opposite Corvus. Light spilled from within as a gangplank extended from the craft with a clang. A shadow appeared in the light, waiting for a moment at the entryway before emerging into view. Whispers spread through the men of surprise and amazement. Guns quivered in shaking hands, and there were clatters as some of the soldiers dropped their weapons. Seemingly without prompt, the men lowered themselves to the ground, putting aside their weapons and bowing their heads. Some prostrated themselves, whispering fervently. Corvus glanced at Gapion beside him. The lieutenant was on his knees too. There were tears in his eyes and an expression of joy etched on his slack-lipped face. So majestic, Gapion muttered. What glory! What power! Confused, Corvus directed his attention to the man descending the landing ramp. He seemed unremarkable. In fact, he seemed so unremarkable that Corvus could not discern a single distinguishing feature about him. He was of average height, with dark hair and moderately tanned skin. In build he was neither bulky nor slight, but of normal proportion, slightly larger than the malnourished men who now abased themselves before him. He was dressed in a robe of white linen, free of ornamentation except for a necklace of gold on which hung a pendant fashioned in the shape of an eagle with outspread wings, a lightning bolt in its claws. The man's eyes were as indistinct as the rest of him, neither blue nor green, nor grey nor brown, but a flecked mixture of all. Yet there was something in those eyes that reached into Corvus and touched upon his inner self. There was wisdom and kindness there, and antiquity that was very humbling, but also disconcerting. And here we have Corax laying eyes on his father for the first time since his birth. Before the Chaos Gods whisked him and his brothers away, Corax seeing the man behind the power, the human who is still at the core of what the Emperor has become. I've always thought that out of all the Primarchs, Corax bears the greatest likeness physically to the Emperor, with his long dark hair and his complexion. We know that Corax has a slightly more white complexion in the lore, but often when you see him in the novels, he has more of a tanned look about him, and that really symbolizes very similar to the Emperor to me.
Yeah, it's that's one of the things that there are certain differences between the novels. That's kind of annoying. There's not like full consistencies throughout about all the characters, so we can only, count on some of the. Well, you have to decide which description you're gonna subscribe to, and then, all of these arts, they're great, but yeah. Anyway, that's not totally, that's not the point at all that we're gonna discuss here today. Now, hi Diamond. And as far as I gathered, there's not really, I tried to find, but a lot of other Primarchs are how they see the Emperor, but I'm gonna get ahead of myself. So the point is to see what he says, and then I'm gonna tell you what I reached as a conclusion about the Emperor, how he really looks like, which is the interesting part here. I know that you're gonna write a ton of stuff in the comments. Who are you asking about the Horus Heresy? Because I'm pretty sure that we all know about it. Okay, I know that you're going to pour a lot of info in the comments, but the point is to get through the topic. So I'm gonna check whatever I can after I finish with the video here, so I can get my thoughts on it. Oh, yeah, Optic is not exactly 40k fan. He's still learning, so he might not know about the Horus Heresy. Anyway, so to not lose any train of thought, let's continue here and get to the interesting part.
Corax feeling the wisdom and kindness inside the man before him, and the line of antiquity that was very humbling but also disconcerting. The Emperor is virtually ageless beyond measure. The things he has seen, the wisdom he has. Corax is right, it must be very humbling, but also a little unnerving encountering him for the first time. And at the same
Yeah.
time as Corvus saw this, he also witnessed the arrival of a demigod. Wreathed in golden light and dressed in white finery that burned with its own light. He saw a stern face set with two golden orbs for eyes, piercing in their intensity, searing into the core of his being. The stranger seemed to tower over the kneeling men, borne forwards upon a carpet of undulating flames. It was impossible to reconcile the two images.
Wow.
The supreme, grandiose king of men approached Corvus, but all the while the slight, unimposing man flickered within. Finally, Corvus's mind could fight no longer against the glamour, and he saw the new arrival as his followers did, and was filled by an overwhelming urge to pay obeisance to this stranger. And here we have the other side to the coin. Not just the human father to Corax, the leader of a race, the most powerful being in the galaxy, the Emperor of mankind. He fought that instinct. He had waged a war so that his people would now bow before another man. The newcomer's effect on Corvus's men unsettled the rebel leader. He stared with narrowed eyes, unable to discern which image was true and which was illusion, as the stranger paced slowly and confidently across the ferrocrete. "Who are you?" Corvus demanded.
Okay. So here is the moment now that we have to stop this and talk about that. So yeah, he sees him in two ways. The first way is as a man that is not very special looking, pretty average, and the other is pretty much the godlike figure, you know, the super tall figure with the golden glowy eyes and carpet of fire. I mean, that's amazing, with the white robes that glow on themselves. So yeah, a lot of people will read that and they will not comprehend why would he see him in these two ways, and why would the emperor have these two ways of presenting himself, so to speak. So here is my theory, and it's a bit difficult to talk today. I'm sorry, because I bit my tongue. It's kind of like trying to talk, but my tongue is not functioning very well, but I'm gonna try. So, if you watch my previous video, because these things, I mean, the previous video that I covered of Wolf Lord, it was another amazing topic, you know, with the Emperor, how he appeared to... damn it. It's starting getting late, so names are starting to get out of my head, but to that other very vampire-like, to the Night Lord's Primar, damn it! It just escaped my mind, sorry, the name. So how the same way that there was very interesting moments there that should be discussed and break down, because they actually mean a lot more than it seems to be in the first glance. In the same way here, how the Primarchs see the Emperor is very interesting topic, and how regular men see him. So regular men see him as this godlike figure, and the Primarchs can see him in both ways, or sometimes only the other way. I mean, kind of depends on their comprehension. So to explain that, we have to go back to what the Emperor is, which is a topic that is just endless, basically, and we can talk about it and everybody will have their own vision of it. But based on my previous research that is connected to how all the writers, what they did to write for the game in their background. I mean, each and every writer has a background of some sorts that Like for instance in 40K, they had to explore a lot of occult text, religious text, esoteric text, and all of that to draw some kind of inspiration and to see what they could, apply to their story and what not. And sometimes they take something and they just change it the way they want. Of course, it's their story. But what the emperor could be based on all of that, and you can say from the esoteric point of view, is basically that, well, if he is the combination of all of those shamans that sacrifice themselves, that's the most prominent theory that is considered to be most likely true. So if we take that, as everything is hypothetical here, but if we take that and if you also take what actually was said in TTS, one of the first episodes, where they basically, I mean, the emperor himself on the throne, he said that he is what humanity must become in the future, like the distant future. He is just the shortcut to that, so to speak. He already is that, and he wants for humanity to reach that kind of a level. The Primarchs are something that is very high, but is not there yet. They're, as you know, they have a lot more immaturities to them, a lot more flaws than you may think. So they're advanced in one way, but very, uh, lacking in other areas, so to speak. Each and every one of them. That's another topic on its own. But to know the nature of the emperor, he is extremely developed being. Let's call him the pinnacle of the human race, and he reached this level which is both physical and spiritual, and powerful, which is connected to the spiritual, which is the psychic. I'm gonna be here all night, so I'm gonna try to abbreviate it. Basically, the two types of seeing the emperor. One, the godlike figure, is actually his real being, his true essence, his true form, his non-physical form, if you will. That is, of course, takes some kind of a physical form as a human being. It's not just, my tongue is really hurting me here. It's not just like a formless something. It is, so to speak, his really true form. And of course, he does have a physical body that is ancient to this point, literally. And that doesn't have to look in the way that his true self looks like. He just has to inhabit it so he can exist physically here on Earth, basically. But he doesn't have to copy paste that. I mean, that doesn't have to be his, it doesn't have to be 5 meters and all of that in his physical regular form. But to people that cannot, so to speak, to regular people, he can project, because they have weaker minds and all of that. He can project his true being, so they can see him all the time as who he really is, as this huge godlike figure compared to them. Have in mind that it's a similar analogy when you take the gods of Asgard, like Thor is, for instance. The Asgardians are not gods, but they are gods compared to humans. So, if you follow this analogy, the emperor is a lot like a god compared to humans, but is not exactly God in that kind of a sense that he is end all be all, because he doesn't have this origin. He has an origin of a very powerful being that ascends to this path, but in terms of a human, he already reached the pinnacle of that, and now he can build upon that power and his development and ascend to more, to real godhood eventually, maybe. But that's totally different topic. Now the point is the difference in how they perceive him physically. So the Primarchs, since they're closer to him in terms of vision, and some of them have his abilities, some of his abilities. Basically, he took like a sprinkle and just sprinkle, a lot of his abilities, and they, some get this kind of a ability and percentage of this, percentage of that, something like this. So each and every one of them have different also comprehension level in terms of their physical existence and also their non-physical existence. They each have different intelligence on a lot of different levels. I mean, they're specialized at something, and some aspects they lack, like emotional maturity, and in some aspects they're like a bit better. I mean, compared to it just depends. Yeah, it just depends. I mean, you know that. But that's just very, very interesting that, he is such a high level being is able to project his what he wants others to see him as. Because once again, actually, his physical body is not his real self. His real self is what transcends his physical body, which is, of course, his real form. So basically, when you think about the emperor, I mean, I've seen some previous, when I didn't know about all of those things, I just seen some comments that were like, well, the emperor actually looks like a normal human, and that's actually how he really looks like, but everybody else think that he's a god. But it's the opposite. His real self is that godly figure, and his physical body is just what he needs to exist in the physical realm. So once again, the physical body is the tool to to be present in this world. Is not his real being. He just uses it to exist here in the same way that others do, but his is just a greater mission. And he also needs to present himself in his real self to the best of his ability, so others can really believe in him and follow him. If he just looks like he can, I mean, I'm sure that he can psychically project that he looks like a regular human being, nobody will be that impressed. And he knows how people are. He knows that people are not on that level at all, like even a little bit. So he needs every bit of presence to inspire and lead. That's extremely important. Physical appearance is extremely important in this world. So in any world, basically. So he has to have the persona and the physical manifestation of that in the eyes of everyone, so he can be what he's supposed to be. He can accomplish his mission that way. So it's a lot of, basically a lot of meaning behind it. His physical appearance in the eyes, once again, of people is what he really needs to be and what he actually really is. But the confusion of Corax is normal because he can also see him with his regular human eyes and be like, "Oh, this is just a man. Oh, wait, I see him towering over everybody and glowing." Because yeah, I mean, both images are true, but the one that really matters is the towering figure. So the Emperor does not do it on purpose. He is just who he is. That is his real essence. But for regular people, it's just better to see him that way because, yeah, that is actually him. It's like the other analogy with Bruce Wayne and Batman. Who's the real guy? Well, it's Batman because Bruce Wayne is actually the mask. He's really Batman. You know that analogy? I don't know if you know that analogy. I'm just a DC fan as well, so I can make like these analogies because I do understand them. It's not exactly the same thing, but uh, kind of, yeah, it's pretty similar. I mean, in terms of principle, it's principle thing. Now we can continue forward, and then I'm gonna check your comments and see what you're saying.
What have you done to my men? The stranger looked around at the guerrilla fighters, regarding him with adoration, seeming to Corvus slightly nonplussed at the scene. His blonde hair fell in waves across his shoulders as he turned his head, spilling like fiery liquid. Another wave of majesty swept over Corvus, and again the guerrilla commander had to make a physical effort not to fall to his knees.
Wow.
An occupational hazard, said the man, returning his attention to Corvus. He fixed the rebel leader with a stare, his eyes now permanently golden like bottomless wells of light. There was a glow of power beneath his skin, as if the stranger's flesh were embers masked behind thin paper. Corvus experienced a momentary fluttering in his breast and a knot of anxiety in his gut, a fraction of the effect the man was having on his warriors. A great point of note here: the Emperor is not intentionally throwing out this power to make them worshipping him.
Yeah.
It's just him. The
Yeah.
power exudes from him unless he makes a concentrated effort to disguise it. Corax as a Primarch is far greater being than a mere human, but still, even he struggles to not give in to this effect. I am the Emperor of mankind. I created you. Hearing these words was like a veil lifting from Corvus's eyes. He saw the Emperor as he had seen him before, watching the growing infant through the canopy of an incubator. His face had been distorted by curved plates of glass, but the features were unmistakable. The guerrilla leader had long pondered the face from his earliest memories, wondering to whom it belonged. Now vague recollections became sharp memory.
It's interesting.
Corvus recalled the noise and lights and booming voices that had engulfed him, remembered the surge of power and disorientation as unnatural forces had borne him away from the place of his creation. Now he saw and knew for certain the face of his father.
Yeah, it's just so cool that he was able to remember that when he was a baby. That's very interesting. But they do develop faster than normal humans, so their comprehension and memories from such a young age apparently somehow
The
still
only individual worthy
remain.
of Chorus's unwavering obedience. He lowered himself to one knee in deference, understanding that the stranger spoke the truth. Here was the master of mankind. What do you call this place? The Emperor asked. It used to be called Lyceus, Corvus replied. Now we know it as Deliverance. A good name, said the Emperor. Please rise, my son. We have much to talk about. Here again, we have the Emperor referring to a Primarch as his son. There's no pretense here. This is the very first meeting and Corax is already down on one knee in deference to the master of mankind. The Emperor could quite easily have said, right, Tool 19, we've got work to do, or Warlord 19, whatever he wanted to refer to him as, just number 19. But no, he calls him son. And that's because I believe he truly means it. This is a father meeting his son. Yes, a created son, but from his own genetic material. The Emperor most certainly has different relationships with his Primarchs. A very fatherly one with, say, Vulcan and Corax. To a very distant and cold one, such as with Angron and even Lorgar, which is a very human thing. The guy's got 18 sons who were created to help him conquer the galaxy. Yet as always, his flaws always seem to come back to the human essence. It's also worth noting that this was written about 4 years before ADB's Master of Mankind novel, which gave us a very different version of the Emperor. It's one of the double-edged swords of having multiple authors on a series. It's great, you get different interpretations of characters seen from different eyes, but sometimes you have to ask if that's always for the best.
Yeah, there has to be some kind of a consistency, otherwise we're sitting here and arguing about whether or not the Emperor really loved his sons or they were just twos, because if Gilliman is any indication, when he went to see the Emperor, when he returned from his dead status, he was like, oh no, we're just things to him. Well, he is sitting there dead 10,000 years, and uh, a lot of things can change for 10,000 years, but just the whole grief of the betrayal altogether combined. I mean, that's once again, that's a different topic, but I mean, that I also like Mr. Wu here. So far, subscribe to the theory that the Emperor do has some kind of a true, feeling and even love towards his sons in general. I mean, he showed that so many times by the way he spoke to them, treated them, and his genuine interest how they fared on their separate worlds when they were separate and grew up without him. All those things, and we see here exactly this with this meeting because it's a bit more detailed. But then, of course, after the Horus Heresy, the only thing that he has done for 10,000 years is to freaking sit on the throne and to fend off chaos and to sustain whatever he could in that state that he found himself in. So, uh, yeah, I mean, there's a lot that could be said. What is even, what is he is going through on that throne? Gilliman like expected something totally different, but he was also basically dead for 10,000 years. So yeah, I wouldn't be thinking that the emperor would be super warm and fluffy inside after 10,000 years being in that state on the throne. So there's that, but that doesn't mean that before he didn't care or anything like this. It just means that he maybe even deals with things and knows stuff that we just have no idea about. And we cannot possibly begin to judge him without knowing anything that he is literally going through sitting on that throne for so long and all of those things. So it's not an objective place from which we can draw any conclusions, at least not until somebody writes more about what's gonna happen now or 10,000 years later. I mean, not compared to, depending on where the books, novels, codexes, through how many years they are coming out, and where Games Workshop decides to take the story. They can decide so many things that we just can't speculate. But yeah, that doesn't mean that the emperor didn't love his sons. Yeah, and maybe he didn't do them physically, but it just doesn't matter. I mean, if they're made literally from him, they're his sons as much as any natural ways. It's the same thing.
But I know a lot of
Actually, if not even more. But that's another topic because they also had a mother or something, which I barely scratched the surface on that. So yeah, I'm gonna check about the mother as soon as I can as well.
people prefer this colder version of the Emperor. And they did. Corvus withdrew from his men and took the Emperor to his quarters, an old guard station in the mid-levels of the Black Tower. Corvus sought out food and drink for his guest, ashamed at the meagre fare he could offer his father. The Emperor waved away his concerns, sitting on the rough bunk that served as a chair for the massive rebel commander. "Do you recognize me?" the Emperor asked. His expression was hard to read. Corvus detected a hint of surprise behind the question. Whatever glamour had befallen the guerrillas had a lesser effect on Corvus, and the man before him was definitely the same as from his old memories. "As if from a dream," he replied. "Interesting," said the Emperor, with a smile and a nod. They spoke about many things, though Corvus was bursting with questions.
Yep. Hi, James.
They spoke about many things, though Corvus was bursting with questions about the Emperor, himself, and the wider galaxy. He found that he did most of the talking, answering constant queries from the Emperor concerning what had taken place on Deliverance and Kievar. Corvus furnished him with all the information he could concerning the history of the star system and the war for freedom he had waged over recent years. Corvus paced the room while he spoke, animated and energized. The Emperor sat on the bunk and nodded occasionally, in understanding rather than approval. In fact, he showed no judgment of any kind, no condemnation or endorsement of Corvus's actions. He listened intently to everything Corvus told him, sometimes asking exceptionally pertinent questions about the tiniest of details, wishing to absorb everything about Corvus's life. "But there is one piece missing that I cannot answer," Corvus said, finally voicing what his heart yearned to know since his first discovery. "How is it that I came to be here?" The Emperor's mood darkened and his face grew grim. For the first time, he took a sip from the glass of water Corvus had given to him hours earlier, eyes haunted. "There is another universe," he said. "It lies alongside ours, part of it, but also separated. It is called the Warp." "I know of it," said Corvus. "Though I have not seen it, I hear that ships can use to travel to distant stars. Some of the machines of Kievar are said to harness the energy of the warp. It is a universe of boundless power, and can be accessed, as you say, by ships and by the minds of special men that we call psychers," the Emperor continued. "Like our galaxy, the warp is inhabited by creatures not of flesh but thought. Sometimes they hunger for our material lives, wishing to feast on our mortality. You and your brothers were taken from me by Denzians of the Warp before you were ready." "Brothers?" Corvus was excited by the prospect, pushing aside the questions that the Emperor's answers had prompted. Though he had made many friends amongst the prisoners of Lycius, always Corvus had been aware of his otherness. And when they had started to call him Saviour, any hope of normal relationships had ended. There were others like him filled Corvus with hope again. "Yes, you have brothers," said the Emperor, smiling at his son's delight. 17 of them. You are the Primarchs, my finest creations." Here we see the simple human emotions of both these beings so far above the rest of humanity. Firstly, the resentment of the Emperor when he discusses the scattering of the Primarchs, and then Corax's excitement at the possibility of having brothers, other beings like him, to finally have normal relationships, and the Emperor's happiness at seeing his son's reaction to finding out about his brothers.
Yeah, that all together just it's sweet, it's fascinating, it's just cool. It's super sad that after that it's not that funny, but I mean it's not that positive, but this initial interaction is really cool.
All genuine human reactions. 17? Corvus asked, confused. "I remember that I was number 19. How can that be so?"
Interesting how he remembers
The Emperor's
that.
expression grew bleak, filled with deep sorrow. He looked away as he replied. "The other two," he said. "That is a conversation for another day. Where are my brothers now? Are they with you?"
Which day?
"You and the other Primarchs were snatched from me by strange powers of the Warp."
Yeah, which is also interesting how that happened, but so he says that is a conversation for another day. I wonder if we ever gonna find out where the 19th and 20th Primarch, what the heck happened to them. That's gonna be very
"Thrown
interesting.
across the galaxy on unnatural tides. That is how you came to rest beneath a glacier moon. Yes, I have seen what befell you, learning your life the moment I laid eyes upon you. The rumour of you, of a magnificent being who led a rebellion here, has travelled farther than you realise, and it was word of this that attracted my attention. Your brothers, those I have found, were similarly scattered to far-flung worlds. Like you, they are all great warriors and leaders. And that was my gift to you. You are supreme commanders with intellect and physical ability unmatched by anything in the mass of humanity. I engineered you from my own genetic structure to be my sons and my lieutenants in the Great Crusade. Again, a small point by the Emperor doesn't just say lieutenants, to be my sons and my lieutenants. Of course, you could say he said that to ensure his loyalty, but the guy's already been down on one knee in homage. I don't think the Emperor's worried about that. What is this crusade? How many of my brothers have you found? Most of them, replied the Emperor. I have vast armies, the Legiones Astartes. As you are crafted from me, so they are created from you. The Primarchs are the generals of those armies, leading humanity's reconquest of the galaxy. The long night, the age of strife, has ended. The remnants of the old empires smoulder out in the darkness, the dying coals of humanity almost smothered by the dark. The Great Crusade fans the flames into life, bringing with it reason to drive out superstition, enlightenment to replace barbarism. With your help, I will unite humanity and lead mankind to rule the stars. It was so much to take in, but Corvus knew it to be true. Not only the words of the Emperor seemed certain, the idea of what he described meshed with much deeper feelings. Knowing he was a Primarch, that he had been created to fight and to command, explained much that Corvus had never understood about himself. On a level that he understood in his spirit and was encoded into every cell of his body, Corvus knew what he was. I swear my loyalty to you, said Corvus, sinking to one knee in front of the Emperor. He met the Emperor's gaze and felt elation, like no victory had given him before. I am your son, your Primarch, and your will shall be my command. That is good, said the Emperor. I have an army waiting for you. They are the Raven Guard, highly decorated and distinguished in my campaigns already. When you are ready, you will assume command of the Legion. I am not ready now, Corvus said, having been elated and then deflated by the Emperor's words. Not yet, my son, said the Emperor, but soon you will emerge to join your brothers and take your place at my side and at the head of the Raven Guard.
Well, of course, he has to learn the ways of the Imperium first. Of course, but I don't know how young he was back then, but he's really acting like how to say this, a bit like a teenager, you can say, in this way. I mean, nothing wrong with that. He is in awe of meeting his father, and what Wu said, that immediately when he is listening to what his father is saying, he finds the truth in his words because he feels in his spirit what he really is, which is what a lot of people can experience in their life. I mean, when you hear something that it just rings true to you, it's like you always knew it, and when you hear it, all falls into place, and it's one of the most profound things that someone can experience. So that is totally very well written. It's really deep, and it's just great. I really love it.
First, though, tell me of Kievar. What are your intentions? To bring peace to both the world and its moon, and to heal the wounds of the past, said Corvus. With your help, I will succeed. Peace is the hardest goal to achieve, said the Emperor.
Yeah.
Victory, the cessation of war, the demilitarization of our opponents, these we can obtain with might of arm. Peace, that is an altogether different beast.
Mm-hmm.
Corvus frowned, but nodded slowly. The Emperor sipped from his glass, his gaze unmoving. Tell me again. Then tell me of your wounds you and your warriors inflicted upon this world, and of the peace you would bring to it with my help. So there we have it. Corax's first meeting with his father, the Emperor of Mankind. And a great comment to end it on. Peace is the hardest goal to achieve.
Mm-hmm.
Peace is an altogether different beast. You know, showing the Emperor understands the difference between just conquering a people and achieving a true lasting peace. That's not something that's always considered when we talk about the Emperor of Mankind and his plans for the human race. As you guys know, I enjoy these human moments with Primarchs the most. And
Yeah.
Corax has always seemed one of the more human Primarchs, with all the strengths and flaws that brings. And he's always seemed to have one of the more closer relationships with the Emperor as a result. Here the Emperor seems genuinely happy in his meeting with Corax, showing his happiness at Corax's excitement at having brothers, the interest at wanting to know as much detail as possible from his past without being judging. And then further on in the heresy, we have the Emperor allowing Corax to access the data to the Primarch project. How many Primarchs would have been trusted with that? That is a great question to ask, but I really don't think it would have been many. But what did you think about this meeting?
Yeah.
Do you feel it was as genuine as I do?
Yeah, I personally definitely do. Because everything and how it's written, it's literally screams, yeah, this is freaking what you see is what you get kind of a thing. It is genuine from the Emperor and from the very natural reaction as well, from Corax. Yes, sorry, Bulgarian came out. So, what he said about peace, he has to establish it, sustain it, and make people just think in a way that will achieve that peace, which is the hardest part, because only conquering will not achieve peace. That's the truth. People really have to be content and happy with the way that they're living after they're conquered, which that's very hard to achieve. So, and it's once again a different topic. So now I'm going to go through your comments, see what you said during all of this. But yeah, basically, that's one of the coolest moments just because of all the reactions and of the ways that the Emperor is presented to be seen. It's like there's not that much of written, written aspects of the Emperor in that kind of a way. And those are the things that actually are the most telling. So the more such moments, the better picture you can gather, like a puzzle of what is the Emperor and how he really thinks. A lot of times, such figure as the Emperor, not that I can think of an equivalent of him in any kind of a fantasy right now. Exactly the equivalent. I mean, there's obviously rulers and gods and the Age of Sigmar and Sigmar, but still is not the equivalent of the Emperor. The Emperor is totally different being that just lived for millennials and he's seen everything basically. And you cannot just start to comprehend and to pretend that you will understand all of that. He's not a regular man. He's the man emperor, but he's not a man in how we think, but is the ideal that we should all strive towards, so to speak, in the 40k setting. Okay, so let us read. I do want to proceed to game, so we're not going to drag this out. I already said everything that I want to say, but of course, as always, I'm gonna pay attention to what you are writing in the meantime. Okay. That's interesting. Okay, I'm gonna comment on some things to the extent where makes sense for what I currently know, you know. So, Diamond, thank you for your input. Corax has seen untold atrocities, you say, and in the name of enlightenment in the future had even committed a few. Yeah, I do know of this, but that is later on, it's not connected to the current moment particularly. Well, it is in the way that he is faithful, but that's once again another topic. Um, of this, he was not proud, but he was sure that his cause had always been just. The other thing is that the Primarchs themselves are not the Emperor, once again. Like I said in the previous Wolf Lord coverage, they're not. They do not have his comprehension, his wisdom, his years, thousands of years of living. We cannot possibly expect them to be as mature as him. They could have a potential or some of his potential, which, yes, they do, but which part? Like I've said, everybody has a different part. So they are very, very incomplete beings in that regard. That's a huge flaw to me. I mean, if you're gonna design some beings, you have to be like, okay, they somehow have to be fortified in their ways of their mind and their spirit. Otherwise, they're just loose cannons, just wild cards. Who knows what's gonna happen? But that was not done. And Chaos took advantage of that, scattered them, and everything was ruined. So if they all grew up with the Emperor, like a lot of people, are thinking about that already and thought about it a lot, things would surely be different in some ways, surely, because the Emperor is going to have full control of their developments since the very start. They're going to be trained in all kinds of things that would help them develop better as leaders, primarchs, human beings of the highest level. All of those things are gonna be a lot better, approached. But since they were scattered, 50% of the emperor's plan surely was screwed. That's for sure. So after that, they had like percentage of their culture that they grew up around, in, and the other was the emperor's influence, which to them felt a bit alien in a way, at least to some. But they already had a base based on their culture and their planet that they grew up in. So that's of course is a huge problem. If your base is the first 7 years, of child's life are crucial, and the same way with the Primarchs, but then the first whatever years are crucial without their father is basically uh, just a recipe for disaster, especially for the huge burden they have to carry so much responsibility on their heads, and all of that. So there's a lot of things to consider when it comes to, well, yeah, the whole scattering of them, and because otherwise it really looks uh, like a huge flawed plan. But if you take the scattering, then it would be much more better plan. So initially it was a great idea, you can say. That's how it looks like. But it got completely screwed by the scattering, almost completely, which is enough because it did fail when it mattered, because the emperor is a corpse on a throne, so it did fail, unfortunately, when it mattered. Yeah, yeah, mostly mattered. You know what I mean. Okay, so reading what I can again. Yeah, it's a messy business. So he was great at war. Okay. Well, they are all great warriors, some better than others, but I get your point. That's cool, the Eternal Shadow. Yeah, ice is not gonna help me. Hmm, those things heal on their own, you know. You know the funny thing, actually I forgot to mention that when I was trying to to write my own stuff when I was a kid, the first fictional character that I ever wrote was named Conrad. Um, because I wanted to write a character that resembles Conan the Barbarian, but because, of course, Conan was already taken, I wanted to create my own fictional name. Yeah, Conrad was what I came up with. Now you can say, but Conrad is a regular name, like, yeah, okay, but when I was a kid, I had no idea. Just literally what came to my mind. So I wrote Conrad. He's gonna be called Conrad, instead of Conan. Hmm. Oh yeah, the lion also, his view is different. Like I've said, everybody's different. If he's not able to see the face, that's very telling of his inner growth and being as well. He's lacking something. If he cannot see the face, face is very important part. The eyes and the face, in particular, eyes window to the soul of the face is. I mean, we can dig into this the whole night, but we're not going to. The point is, he's definitely lacking some kind of a depth if he cannot, if he cannot see his face. Hmm. Okay. Oh, Jazz, you are here. Outlander in armor, hidden beneath a cloak. Same goes with Mortarion. Later, Emperor show himself in all of his glory and splendor. Interesting. Yeah, I've seen that about the Vulcan as well. He can make them see him how he wants as well, but the initial comprehension without him imposing his actual being, how he actually looks like, that's the telling part. So, of course, he can make everybody see him the way that he wants, but what they can see initially is another matter. And sometimes he can disguise himself, and he did disguise himself on purpose, but once again, that does not debunk, what I said already. It's just a matter of what he wants, and it's still a matter of their perception and where their perception lies on the spectrum of their own inner development, so to speak. Biggie. I love how everybody call him Biggie. Did that originated from Major Kill? Okay. Yeah, as I do understand that, as I explained, God and what we think is God. I mean, what people in the 40K universe may perceive as God is different, but the principle is the same. That if you see, like, for instance, if you see an angel, you can think that it's a god because it's gonna glow, it's gonna look totally different than what you used to, it's gonna look heavenly, it's going to look all those things that you may imagine that God could look like, but it's actually going to be just an angel, and angels are the lowest of the hierarchies. Compared to humans, they're like gods once again, but compared to the whole spiritual hierarchy, they are the lowest. Which lowest is a very bad word in this case because we are lower and we shouldn't say that, because it's just not correct in terms of comparison. But the point is that you're gonna perceive it because of your own comprehension is limited to a point. So you're gonna probably perceive it as a god. Just a very quick comparison. Analogy is not perfect, but principle is the same. Okay. Okay. Interesting. There's so many of these references. Actually, they're not enough, if you ask me. There should be more. That's when you can really put them together. Okay. So, yeah, I have to check about the mother more. I only know that, yeah, something is, it's taken from her, but that's another thing that I really have to dwell into. There's so many things. Yeah, of course, the death and suffering that happens. Um, yeah, everything matters. Yeah, he held back. He held back to not kill Horse so many times. I mean, if he was, let's say, he's like Superman. I mean, you know how Superman, if you know, Superman holds back a ton of time just to not kill somebody. But there's a very amazing scene in Justice League, the TV show, where he has this one-on-one with Darkseid, and he's like, "Well, I always held back, but now, I won because I will not held back." And you experience my full power, and he really beat his ass a lot. Now we can talk about Darkseid, but that's another topic. And what is he in his, avatar? That his true being is not his material body. That's totally different topic. But the point is once again that, and the Emperor also held back. He didn't want to kill him. He did want for Horus to snap out of it. But he couldn't. At the end, he did finally when the Emperor hit him, and Horus actually came to himself for a bit, but there was no time and there was no risk in it, so the Emperor had to finish him. It is very powerful and sad story, and it's just I can't even. It's and the image of Sanguinius lying bloody with his wings on the floor, having given everything out of himself, everything, and to be crushed like this. Oh no, I can't even go there. We already went through this with Voldemort's three epic videos, and it was, yeah, it was very emotional. I was just staring at those pictures, although they don't represent what's happening on screen. Some of them slightly do, some of them not, but it still helps to immerse yourself when you don't see anything else and to imagine how the scene would have played out. I just really wish to see someday that whole thing in a movie or TV show. Yeah, I hope that this Inquisitor show is gonna be very successful so it can get more 40K, and hope that it happens because of the current situation. I don't know, but they start filming in general a lot of stuff. So we have hope, guys. We have hope for this. But I really wish that it's successful. It's gonna be awesome. Okay. Well, I wouldn't hold back, but I mean, if he is corrupted by freaking chaos, and you know that he is corrupted and he already killed Sanguinius, if I was the Emperor, female representation of the Emperor, okay, if I was the Emperor, I would be like, okay, he is irredeemable. He is. I cannot get through him. I mean, Sanguinius is one of the most purest of Primarchs. He's not perfect, but he's one of the most pure, if not the purer, at least out of the old Primarchs. And if he cannot break through Horus and make him see the light, so to speak, and just get over the demonic, sorry, possession, that the Emperor will not do much more of that. I mean, he can try with a few lines, but not let him, let Horus kill him. It's a totally different thing where there's a demonic possession, which Horus did allow, fully allow within himself, because he already had the seed of doubt and the seed of, well, a lot of resentment and negative emotions and all of those things. He cannot be, you know, uh, within that state without allowing it. So he did allow this to happen to him. Uh, he already made a decision on his own, and then he was further, corrupted and infused with the demonic, but he did do that consciously. Consciously, he took that decision. So he is forfeit, kill the guy right now, because if the Emperor was the colder, I mean, cold as some people think that he is, he will not actually have died at all. He will not let Horus kill him. He will not hold back. He would just freaking give his all right away and vaporize the hell out of Horus. you know? So if he was really cold and he did not care about his sons, he will definitely be, oh, off with your head, son. Nice knowing ya, but no. No, he genuinely tried to make him snap out of it, but he didn't. But yeah, if it was me, I would be like, okay, irredeemable son, this is so sad. I mean, if I have to get serious here, of course I'm gonna be serious in that moment, but the priorities and the wisdom that you have to keep always and first and foremost are the well-being of mankind, the imperium, the other primarchs. The other son is laying there, one of the most purest and awesomest sons ever, Sanguinius. And that guy here is demonic in possession. I mean, he's possessed and he looks horrible, and the whole ship is infested with demons and screams of the demons. Just the whole picture was horrible. So it's more than obvious that Horus is lost. Like literally, he is lost. He's just not, not worth it anymore. He made his decision. And he did so many things before, so many, bad things, to move towards his, you know, demonic uh, infusion. So he did everything consciously. He went on that path. Nobody moved his legs without him being aware of it. He was. So he deserves to die right away. Very, very swiftly, just because he has to be neutralized. The more he lives, the more dangerous he is, and the Imperium is at risk. So, as a king, as a ruler, as a freaking emperor, you have to take the decision right away and be completely unbiased and just see all the things, all the cards on the table, and make the conscious and very swift, wise decision, objective decision, that you cannot redeem this guy. He has to be stopped because he already destroyed like half Earth. I mean, he destroyed the devastations were so many. Ships wrecked, everything. The Imperium is just hanging on a thread. Already other Primarchs died, you know. So many things that are already like facts, facts, facts. So you can't hold back. That's just not objective as a ruler or, yeah, I mean, as a father, you also have to say, well, yeah, he's lost. I mean, people made decisions based on a lot more uh, feasible situations in life, you know, that are obvious. There's there's similar thing that happen, similar because, yeah, it's similar. But even in that case, I mean, in that case, you can argue that yes, you can try to redeem this person, but not in Horace's case. So in Xena, there was an episode where she had to try to redeem, to bring back to the light one of the, I mean, a new king of the, not king, a new queen of the Amazons. It was very good episode in season 6, I think. And she was basically completely lost in her ways. I mean, she's a good queen and all, but Ares, the god of war, corrupted her. uh, he's very good at playing off emotions. So he was like, well, all your sisters were taken as slaves, and her own sister was taken as slave by the um, by actually Xena's daughter. That's a long story. So now you have to kill Xena's daughter, and of course Xena's daughter was already good by that point, but this queen still wanted to freaking kill her, despite Livia was her Xena daughter's name. She was already redeemed and all of that, but no, I'm gonna kill her. And Xena has to try to talk her out of it in a good way. They fought. It was battle to the death, and then Xena allowed. I just forget her name right now. The queen. Damn it. Anyway, I mean, she was ready to allow that queen to kill her in order to see where she's wrong. So in that way, you can win. You can make this person see the light. Because Xena manipulated the situation in a way that her sister died. I mean, Xena was in the same uh, situation, the same, like, crouched on the ground, looking at her, the queen with the sword right above her, just looking at Xena's face. And it's the same way that her sister died. So in that moment, she was like having almost a deja vu and be like, okay, I'm just turning into my worst nemesis here. Like literally, I'm becoming Olivia, the way that she was before. So in that kind of situation, when a person is still a person and they're just led by, you know, they're just misleading, lying to themselves, even just trying to convince themselves that what they're doing is right, but in the same time becoming what they hate the most. That just classical situation of like actually um, Anakin, how he became Darth Vader, just was ridiculous irony. That the same thing, that he wanted to protect Padme so badly that he became the thing that killed Padme. So yeah, but when we talk about the freaking demonic possession to that high of a level, there's just no redeeming. Just kill the guy, save the Imperium. We will not have this problem now with the Golden Throne, Emperor's corpse, and all of the chaos reigning supreme, and all of those things that are happening. Anyway, I went on a rant, but since you asked, I had to reply and elaborate on where I'm coming from. So that's gonna be it, guys, for 40k. I'm gonna rest a bit and prepare for a gaming stream of something. We'll see what. I really want to play too many things, so I'm just gonna pick a game and gonna play it. It's Friday night, so I wanna chill and have fun. If you want to watch that, like 30 minutes from now, I'm gonna come back. But guys, I wish you a great and awesome weekend. 40k is gonna be some kind of a fun present as well on the weekend. I'm gonna do something else. And yeah, have a great night, sleep well. Thank you very much for watching. If you like, support me, the links are down below to my OnlyFans for meaningful sex education. You can become a member of the Imperium, and the link to Discord is once again updated and should work if you like to just join the Discord. So that is it, guys. Love ya. Thank you very much. Till next time with me, Gary G Reviews. Awesome Gary T's Golden Astartes. Bye bye.